Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoteric and our continuing series on the Sega Dreamcast, and today we're going to be taking a look at Resident Evil Code Veronica. I have skipped past the intro first 3 minutes just because it is a very slow and boring opening, but short of that, this is an absolutely amazing old school Resident Evil game, and it is one of my favorite in the original style. While Claire here goes and picks up the herb, if you can do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like and subscribe, ring that notification bell. If you feel so inclined, like that herb below you, there is a Patreon link down there as well. But I absolutely love Code Veronica. It innovated enough on the core Resident Evil formula while also staying true to the original games, because I feel like this is the last real Resident Evil in the old style. After this, we get Resident Evil 4, 5, 6, and 7, and 8's right around the corner, maybe already out by the time I put this video up, and those games, while amazing, are totally different. Code Veronica is the old school tank control, locked camera, shoot slow zombies Resident Evil that I grew up on and absolutely love. But it does have some really interesting innovations because unlike all the other Resident Evil games before this, these are not pre-rendered backgrounds. Everything is in full 3D made of polygons. And that's why you see as that light swings back and forth, it actually does cast a little bit of more light onto the wall. So it's kind of the best of both worlds. And you will see that even though the camera's fixed, it can pan left and right. So it's evolving the formula just enough to feel fresh, but it still feels original enough to that Resident Evil formula. We even get these text documents. Granted, I own the Japanese copy, so I can't really read them. If I played in English, I just use my GDEMU. But if you've never played Code Veronica before, it has a decent reputation, but I think it deserves more credit than it actually gets. It's got the classic Resident Evil jump scares. It's got all the mechanics you know and love, the weird puzzles, the things that you solve that don't make any sense, but the game just treats them as normal. It has all of those qualities, and I would say that this is probably my second favorite old-style Resident Evil game, the first game being my favorite. Better on GameCube than the original PlayStation 1 copy, I think, but it is still my favorite Resident Evil game to check out and to play. I do love the sound effects too, that squishing as he grabs her ankle and chews on it. But this was one of the quintessential Sega Dreamcast games. It was originally supposed to be an exclusive, but it came over to PlayStation 2 and GameCube. It doesn't really matter where you play it. If you have a Dreamcast, you haven't checked it out yet, please do it on that system. But I do love all the little intercut real-time engine cinematics we get here. It doesn't cut away to an FMV. We see that something's underneath this building and we're going to have to be dealing with it soon. We're not sure what it is yet, but I like all the anticipation that this game builds. You know something bad's underneath there and you're not sure when it's going to come out, but every time you run past this area, you have that anxiety in the back of your head to say, I remember something's under there and it's eating dead bodies. And that's definitely never a good thing. What I really like about this game, and I know that some people actually don't, is just how it opens. Because we don't start instantaneously in some ornate gothic looking mansion. We're actually in this very industrial area. And don't worry, we will get into that mansion very shortly. But I like that they were just trying something a little bit different with the core kind of gameplay string along that Resident Evil games do give you. And don't get me wrong, the first 3 games are also awesome, but you could tell the developers at Capcom were trying to bring Resident Evil into a more modern era, but weren't quite there yet, and they would get there with 4. So this kind of seems like a middle stepping stone between one era of Resident Evil and the others. And I really like that about it. It just feels modern while also feeling old. And I kind of wish that for some reason they would make Resident Evil 9 an old school fixed camera game. I would love to see something like that, but of course I know we're not going to get that, and that's why I love Code Veronica so much, is it's the last stopover into the new style of Resident Evil games. You have a managed inventory, you still get the sprays, herbs, everything like that, that classic formula. What we're doing right now is we have our first puzzle. It's not a hard one to solve, but the game definitely has that really nice pacing. Sometimes you're going to be in combat, and when you're done with that combat, you're going to have room to breathe and to be able to experience the game. But here's our friend Steve. He's a terrible voice actor, but listen, get a little story, and I'll be right back.
What are you doing here?
Chris Redfield. Is he a relative of yours or something?
You mean my brother?
Ah, your siblings. Why don't you send your brother the coordinates and ask him to come help?
Thanks, I'll do that.
Hey, I was just kidding. There's no way he could get here, even if he is your brother.
Yes, he can, I'm sure of it.
No way. He won't come. You'll just end up disappointed if you rely on others. Believe me, I know.
What was that all about?
Yeah, what was that all about? I will say that Steve is a very annoying character, but that's just kind of classic Resident Evil. The voice acting in this game isn't great. It's from that original, set of games where the voice acting just didn't really hold up compared to what we have now, which is really well voice acted. But I love that. It's because I grew up with it. If you've never played this game before, if you've never played an old Resident Evil game, it might be a little jarring to hear that voice acting quality, but if you grew up with it, you're definitely going to remember it, and if you're like me, be nostalgic for it. But now that we've been able to get that little piece, that emblem there into the copier, we just need to get some material to make a plastic copy of it. And that's just kind of how the locks in this game work. You need to make copies of emblems to be able to get to new areas. And that's the weird thing about Resident Evil and how it still makes no sense. I mean, outside of the suspension of disbelief that zombies are real, a lot of the things in the game that aren't zombie related are some of the strangest things, like how you unlock doors. It's always been like that. It's charming to me, but if you actually stop and think about it for just a little bit too long, it becomes absolutely nonsensical entirely. I will say the one thing I don't love about Resident Evil or games in general when they make you do it is I don't like to shoot the dogs. I feel bad for them. They didn't ask to be made zombies. They weren't working for Umbrella, but it's just one of those things that you have to do. But again, I love how the camera moves with the character here around the corners. It gives it just a little bit more life than we were used to in the old Resident Evil games. And like I said, if you've never played Code Veronica before, I can't recommend you check it out enough. I kind of hope at some point in time they will do a remake of this game like they did for 2, for 1, and for 3. I don't know if it's going to happen because this is one of those, I feel like, black sheep of the series, but I think it's definitely warranting getting a game. And skipping ahead so you don't have to see me solve a very simple and basic puzzle, now that we have the emblem in there, we're moving into the next stage of the game. And I will say that this game opens quite slowly compared to a lot of the other Resident Evil games. It gets much, much better after the first half an hour. That's not to say the first half an hour isn't good, but a lot of the real big set pieces, a lot of the ornate design elements in the mansion are going to occur after you get through this little military installation, because we are trapped on an island and it is a military island, but don't worry, there is a large mansion for you to check out. The designers at Capcom weren't going to go too far away with the formula. And there's slow moments here, just going up these stairs and moving that box. I kind of wish they kept those out. I mean, it's showing us that we can move things, but really it just slows the gameplay down a bit. But then you get up here and she can dual wield these automatic pistols. Her aim's not great on the right, but this game makes you feel a lot more capable than some of the previous Resident Evil games. It is still 100% survival horror, but you don't feel like you're constantly getting beat up by the game. I mean, granted, I put it on easy just for this capture because it makes it easier on me, but even on normal difficulty, this is going to be one of the easier Resident Evil games, in my opinion, to beat. But now you'll see here, we'll go through a gate and we're going to go into a courtyard, and now it's really starting to feel like a classic Resident Evil game. I don't know what happened to the skybox there, why it's just gray. I'm playing this on a real Dreamcast and it just is never there. I'm not sure why. It's a very strange thing to me, but short of that, you can see now we've got these pillars, we've got these lamps. Things are looking a little bit more like the police station from Resident Evil 2, and it's now starting to really truly feel like a real Resident Evil game. And as we go into the mansion here, it is fun. Like I said, this is a game that I don't think a lot of people have checked out. I mean, it originally came out on the Dreamcast, and then once the PlayStation 2 launched, I feel like people just weren't that interested in it, which to me is a huge shame because this is exactly what I think Resident Evil was and should be. It's the classic tank control, fixed camera angle movement. It's got all the suspense and horror of the original games. It's got the really slow-paced puzzle-solving elements and the manual, you have to manage it yourself inventory. This, I remember when I first played it, I absolutely fell in love with it, and I still play it every couple of years when I'm in the mood to recomplete a Resident Evil game, because it just is that time and place to me. I loved it when I played it, and I still do. And it does have a lot of really interesting set pieces. We go through this door here into a bathroom. You're just going to see that there's bats hanging from the ceiling, and all the bathroom doors are these gothic kind of ornate structures. It just does a lot in the world building and the graphics to really tell a story. And graphically, it looks, to me, still great. I mean, I know, of course, Dreamcast is nowhere near current spec, but I still think this game looks absolutely incredible for what it is. It's not one of those games that you play and it looks so old that you're kind of struggling to enjoy it. You can pick this up on any console, play it, and it's going to look good enough for you to enjoy. And that is just my recommendation. If for some reason you've never played Code Veronica, you 100% owe it to yourself to check it out. And you'll see here we need to move this little bench right there because that key card that we're looking for is underneath it. Every once in a while, the controls are definitely going to hinder you. I'm trying to get to the edge here so I can push it, and the game will fight you in spots, but that's just how Resident Evil always used to be. You had to fight with the game to make it do what you wanted to do, and that was kind of the charm of it. It might seem a little frustrating now, but I definitely give it a pass and don't mind it too much when that's happening. But you'll see here, now that we've confirmed that ID, we're going to open up even more of this mansion. And the mansion's sprawling, and what's underneath it is huge. And I love just how this game progresses through different environments. It has different looks, different sounds, different feels. It really does make you want to keep moving forward and finding out what's behind the next door, what's in the next area. And I really do appreciate that about the game. And again, you come in here and we're on this amazing marble floor. There's all these things going on. This just looks like a creepy mansion where I 100% believe zombies do exist. But short of that, that's Code Veronica. Do me a huge favor, go down below, like, subscribe, and that notification bell definitely helps us out. And we'll be back next week. This guy's going to go take a nap. Bye-bye.